Have you ever had a perfect moment of peace and calm ruined by a stranger? We were recently playing with the prompt, I'm in a hole, I'm not alone, in the haven. Now, the thing I love about these kinds of prompts is that while they can spark some creative inspiration, they also give rise to really interesting discussion questions. And as a community largely comprised of introverted and highly sensitive people, we spent some time thinking about holes as hiding places, as nests, as sanctuaries, places of silence, stillness, and solitude where we can grow, rest, and be ourselves away from the noise, the demands, the expectations of a world that doesn't always move to the same rhythm as us. We need these kinds of holes for the sake of our well-being. And we don't necessarily want to find someone else in there with us, especially when we're not expecting them to be there. I really like going up mountains. Sometimes it's nice to do it on my feet, but it's also really nice to do it in a cable car. This is Ulas in northern Finland. I'd spent the morning hanging out with reindeer and getting lost on a footpath that disappeared. A story for another video. But yeah, we were planning to head up the mountain to see the sunset as it was Gina's last day with us. It was a fairly quiet time of year, so there wasn't much of a queue for the cable car. The gondola came down, it arrived in the turning circle, and in we got. Hold on a second. What's going on? 1, 2, 3, 4. Me. 5, 6, 7. Who are these lot? Now, I'm sure there are rules at busy times that say, cram 6 or maybe 8 people into a gondola. Fine. This wasn't a busy time. There was no queue and only about 8.5 seconds between gondola arrivals. So there wasn't a long wait. 7 in a gondola, while not impossible, is an unnecessary squeeze, especially when it is completely unnecessary. And as far as I was concerned, highly undesirable. Now, I'm also aware that I felt a disproportionate amount of rage at the presence of strangers in this hole. My hole. The cabin my friends and I were supposed to be secluded in on our trip up the mountain at sunset for Gina's last evening. I was sharing this story in our live session in the Haven when we were exploring the prompt, I'm in a hole, I'm not alone, right on cue with absolute comedy timing precision. Tula made this photo appear on the screen, which made me giggle. She had captured a photo of my face expressing exactly what I was feeling at that moment. So if you ever see that face on me, it might be because you've just encroached on some space I would rather keep empty, apparently. Good to know, isn't it? One of the gondolarians even took a phone call while we were heading up the mountain. So we all had the opportunity to listen to that as well. Now there might be some watching this thinking, what are you complaining about? What's wrong with any of this? And to you I say, well, I don't know, it's just really annoying. Many people probably want you to at least ask whether or not they mind you crashing their party and whether or not they mind you taking a phone call in a tiny box flying through the sky up a mountain. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I just like having spaces I can breathe, relax, be myself, and not having to be dealing with the sights, smells and sounds of strangers. Let's just wind back slightly. This is not about that. It's not about the gondolarians, actually. I want to pivot to those who get what I'm saying, those of us who struggle with being in places with people that we're not expecting to be there, people who thrive with the space and time to get deep into things, to learn, to grow, to create, to play. One of the original characteristics on Elaine Aron's highly sensitive person self-test is when I must compete or be observed while performing a task, I become so nervous or shaky that I do much worse than I would otherwise. And so many of the sensitive people that I work with talk about a struggle with being observed and how they can actually do something perfectly when practicing. Maybe they're on their own or they're in a very low stimulating environment. But as soon as it feels like they're being watched, their nervous system goes into some kind of protective pattern and engages the activated flight, fight, freeze energy, and they're unable to execute the task that they could previously do. What if we flip the characteristic and find the strength within it? Because while our nervous system might react defensively when being observed, it can thrive when we nurture and shape more favourable conditions. So What about when I am in a spirit of acceptance and collaboration, I become more playful, creative, and able to do much better than I would otherwise. That's kind of the dream, isn't it? Maybe it's the truth for you already. Maybe it's true for certain things that you do. I've noticed this in so many people. You know, when we have the right conditions, we can flourish in all kinds of unexpected ways. And for that to happen, we need to build holes as hiding places, nests and sanctuaries, those places of silence, stillness and solitude where we can grow, where we can rest, where we can play, where we can be ourselves away from the noise, the demands, the expectations of a world that doesn't always move to the same rhythm as us. Sanctuaries we can experiment in, grow and develop our confidence in ways that work for us. If we spend too much of life, putting up with the noise of those metaphorical strangers in our gondola, we're unable to creatively explore, to process, to express ourselves in meaningful and necessary ways. But if we can find and protect our gondolas to feel at home in those sweet pods of belonging and acceptance, we give our nervous systems what they need to connect and maybe even playfully respond when strangers do encroach upon our gondola one day, which they will. They always do, don't they? Leave a comment below if you've ever had an experience like that, or if you are one of those gondolarians and you'd happily jump into someone else's gondola without a second thought. I'd also love to hear from you. Could you shine any light on the thought process that goes into that? Great, thank you.